The Indie Council is in session. Welcome, everybody. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your Master of Ceremonies, Jill Grote, the Indie Informer, and today you might notice that we have a very large council today. Joining us are prepared to pass out PAX East's most beautiful awards, Mike Towndrow. Show it off. Show those little
Hi.
pigeons off.
Oh my goodness.
It's the best
So
$50 I ever spent.
I kind of want to request one, even though I won't be at PAX East.
Well,
You gotta
the
make the
low,
best
low
game.
price. Yeah, just make a really good game.
Punch 'em.
Pay
Okay.
Reed Pop a ton of money.
Easy.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Done.
Also joining us, finally ready to reveal her top games of 2023, Janet Garcia.
Hey.
Hello. Yay, you've done it.
Yeah, I was in the CMS and I
Yeah.
lived to tell a tale.
I believe in you. It was good. I enjoyed the list. Everyone should go check that out. I'll
Thanks.
probably put a link to it in the doobly-doo. And finally, someone get this host
Which
a
we'll
camper
remember
van
doing.
plushie. Like,
Yeah, oh my
Jenny
gosh.
Wyndham, you need that so bad.
I do. There's the cutest camper van plushie out for this amazing little indie game, and I hope I win. I don't enter giveaways, but I entered this one.
I might enter it on your behalf.
Oh my gosh, I would be honored. Thank you.
Everyone's like,
Okay, I
this
think
Jenny Wyndham
At a
person.
certain scale, that starts bending the rules. It's like, oh, I can't believe I won through one of my 9,000 slave proxies.
This is like during one of the PAXs, they had like that pizza game. It's like it's like I don't know, it's like a type of shooter, and you're like a pizza delivery person, and
Yeah.
if you won on hard, you got like the shirt that said like. It said something about pizza on it. It had like a skull, looked really cool. And I was like, everyone I was with, I had them play it. Because I'm like, I can't do it on normal difficulty. So literally everyone went to go try, and I just still don't have that shirt. So I don't know. It doesn't work all the time.
Dang.
You could just steal the shirt. But that voice that you heard is our new member stepping into the light, creator behind El Paso Elsewhere and upcoming horror fantasy kidnapping sim. You heard that correctly. Life Eater, Strange Scaffolds, Xalavier Nelson Jr. Hello, welcome.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
So this isn't actually the first time you've been on the show, but it's the first time you haven't been in absentia, essentially. Like your face is on the show now. Because you wrote in last minute for the episode Greg Miller was on. And I can't remember what the topic was, but it was very well written and we were all very impressed by what you said.
I remember that thing because I was like, I had to run out the door, so I had 2 minutes to write something. And I was like, oh, okay. I promised Jill I'd get this. But object permanence struck, and I forgot. And then I forgot 2 more times. I have to just write this. And so I wrote it. And hearing that it was well received and kicked off a good conversation made me feel good for the 2 seconds in which I can find any joy these days.
Yeah, truth. I wish I were half as articulate when I have time to sit down and really concentrate as you have when you're running out the door and you've forgotten to do a thing.
Thank you.
Okay, but you are not here for long. We don't have you. I'm going to stop messing around because we, when a new person shows up onto the podcast, have a tradition of a very thoughtful would you rather game. But we don't have time for that. So instead, we're going to do a rapid fire interview. Okay. Xalavier does not know these questions. He's not been prepared ahead of time. I don't want you to think, just answer. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Number 1, PAX East or GDC?
GDC.
Yeah.
Coward.
Have you considered pivoting to TikTok full time?
The thought has struck my mind and terrified me. It's like hanging my toes over the abyss, and the abyss licks my feet a little bit, and that just creeps me out immediately, and I walk back. Back. I'm not doing it.
Good answer.
But you're also like, this was kind of interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like-
but
It was kind of
so
interesting,
confusing.
right?
Like most people just have the abyss look at them. You get toe licked.
Is that a title for one of the 4 games? The Abyss licks my toes a little bit.
The abyss licks back.
Strange Scaffold doing a bit of an interesting pivot after this next round.
Okay, I'm ready. Denny's or IHOP?
Denny's, but only because I think IHOP is reaching for heights it can never fulfill. Like you walk into an IHOP and it's like, hey, we're kind of like a nice diner. And you're like, settle down. You're a diner. You're a diner. It's not that nice. It's a little bit overpriced. Denny's looks you in the eyes, and you see that there's no light in them anymore. And they say, "You want a moon over my hammy, right?" And I was like, yeah. Like I walked into a Denny's at one point, and I was so delirious. I said, "Please, I just want something green." And I was just flipping through the pages, and I saw that they had avocado as a side, and I said, "Can you just, in this exact voice, can you just give me this is the avocado? I just want something green, please." And they brought me back the plate, and they threw down a straw instead of any sort of utensils. So I had to suck the avocado slice through a straw bit by bit, like I was at the very bottom of a slushie. Denny's is a real one, and it's for the real ones.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. I'm going to clip that out and put it everywhere, just so you know. What skill is more vital for kids to learn? Gambling or kidnapping?
I feel like gambling sets you on a path towards addiction, and kidnapping you can stop anytime.
Okay.
You hear that, gamesindustry.biz?
You can stop anytime you want.
What is an indie?
I think an independent developer at its most extreme level is any developer who is operating in a position of some existential risk to bring things to bear, because regardless of publishing situation or a degree of funds, they are playing without fundamental support. And I think that's one of the most interesting and under-discussed periods or pieces of the industry right now, which is that because of the improvement of tools and technology, we now have people like 3-man teams making games that used to be built by 15-person teams. We have indie teams making games that THQ used to make. And we have not reckoned with the impact of the fact that 3-man teams, 5-person teams are having to deal with the logistics that were previously handled by publicly listed IPO companies, and that kind of massive divergence of scale and the pressure that those teams are being put under.
So
I think that is an under-discussed piece of the evolution of the industry, as AAA is just AA, but with less support. Hi.
Yeah. Concept of the rapid fire, not really getting there, you know.
Sorry about that. You activated a trap card.
I did. And I hope that this last question does so as well. Can you give our audience an existential crisis with your response?
I think I've done that already, but every single video game that you play is one of the last games you'll play before you die.
Damn, Janet Goobies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
man.
real.
No better way to go
Goobies
out.
gang. Don't take it for granted.
Ending how I lived.
Part of the Goopy gang.
Little
Googly,
Gooby Goober.
yeah.
Goobly.
Okay. That's the end of our rapid fire. I hope that was enough for everybody in the audience to get to understand our guest a little bit more. Or maybe just grab a blanket and cry and rock back and forth. Who knows? Let's
I
move
know
on.
that I'll be starting to kidnap instead of gamble, so that's
There
good.
you go.
I'll be protecting my feet from those licky monsters, you know?
Licky abyss monsters, yeah. Ugh. I'm
We
literally
just want to
barefoot
warn
right
people
now.
we just want to warn people about the licky monsters.
Yeah.
You have to.
That's what all my games exist to do.
We're
That's
here
what's more important for the
awareness.
kids.
The
Yeah.
connective universe. I knew there was something tying it all together.
Jumping into indie news, our first news story obviously is going to be about Strange Scaffold, and you've got so much news, so I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away. What do you have to say?
So combination of personal news and studio news. The personal news is today, as of recording, Xbox Partner Preview went live, and I was the voice actor for
Yes,
that.
you
Yeah.
Bravo.
Hell yeah.
I was saying this before. I think we were all sort of talking about it before we started recording, but I was like, I heard your voice, and I convinced myself I was just going crazy. So I'm glad that you confirmed that.
Who
Yeah,
in that process, who reached out to who? Did you like hit up like Tina, or did like they reach out to you, or
They reached out to me.
That's awesome.
My performance from El Paso Elsewhere made an impact. I've now voice acted on a variety of things, some that I can't talk about, some I can talk about, like Another Crab's Treasure.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yay.
Can't wait.
Got to voice a boss. So yeah, I'm very thankful to have more things happening on the voice acting thing because I love performance. And on the studio front, Strange Scaffold announced a 5-game deal with fellow indie dev and publisher Frosty Pop. We have 2 games coming out this year. One, Life Eater, a horror fantasy kidnapping sim, which is coming out April 16th. You can wishlist it on Steam now. We have a covert revenge thriller FPS called I Am Your Beast, which is basically a black Jason Bourne story where you fight back against the military-industrial complex after saying no to one last job too many. And on top of that, we, in a spirit of transparency for what we want to see more of from the industry going forward, we also revealed the other 2 games that will be coming from that 5-game deal. First off, we have a mobile port for El Paso Elsewhere, which we thought was physically impossible, as well as a untitled co-op kaiju horror cooking game, our first ever multiplayer title.
Okay,
yeah.
excited
And-
for that one.
I love your brain.
Mhm.
An after-hours library horror game pulling from my history as a children's librarian, and the fact that if at any moment someone just handed me a key to a library and said, "This is your job now," I would run into the woods. You would never hear from me again.
So many, like every time you open your mouth for another sentence, I'm like more and more intrigued. And I don't know how you managed to do that. So I do want to go back to like El Paso Elsewhere on mobile. You said that you didn't know it's possible. I still don't think it's possible. You're announcing it, and I'm like, no, that's not a thing. How on earth?
Really good mobile people, in this case Frosty Pop and some amazing partners that they're in touch with, said this game should really exist on mobile. And I was like, really? Are you sure? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And they've now done it. They've shown me the screenshots. It strong art direction really does carry a thing forward, because even though it looks slightly different, like most of the artistic decisions and even the lighting choices carry over to this different version of a game that an Xbox One struggles with. So yeah, it is. I'm not quite sure how it happens either, but it is happening, and I've seen it, and at some point it's going to live on my phone, and that's going to be pretty magical. Maybe I'll be able to convince my sister to finally play it.
Oh, I love it. I think it's just dark magic is what it is.
Yeah, sometimes indies have access to dark magic, and some
Sure.
of them use it judiciously, and some of them use it to port over ambitious Max Payne spiritual successors.
I mean, something that always astonishes me with the team is how much you guys pump out at like such a rapid pace. So like I knew Life Eater was this year. I didn't realize I'm Your Beast also this year. How? Like how do you find the time on top of like doing the voice acting and like obviously this Xbox stuff and I'm sure all the other strings that you're pulling behind the scenes? Like last week or 2 weeks ago, me and Janet were having a discussion on burnout and like how we balance like just all of the work and all the grind that we're trying to do. Like, yeah, I'm just curious to hear your take on it and like what your approach is.
I think one of the key things is I've seen efforts of Strange Scaffold dismissed as youthful energy before, and it makes me furious because I think people have a limited number of burnout years, or sorry,
Sure.
like burn years, where you crunch. I just used a lot of mine early. So when I talk so strongly about sustainability, and how Strange Scaffold is only possible thanks to the grace of God and very specifically organized time that's deeply values driven and human centric, it's because I'm not a 26-year-old with a 26-year-old body and brain. If I don't get a roughly 8 hours of sleep a night, I fall asleep while driving on the highway. That's really freaking scary to have the body and mind and conditions of someone like twice my age. And it is from that position that I say more sustainable, intentional development processes are not just good, but necessary for the survival of our medium to build the games that players deserve and to have the artistic careers that developers deserve to bring those games to them. So long story short, how Strange Scaffold pumps out the games that we do is because we just build games with different priorities. We have multiple teams working simultaneously in very precise ways, and I divide my time very precisely to bring the things that we believe deserve to be made to life. And that means that because of the choices we've made, there's games and scales of games we'll never touch. But that also means that we can ship horror fantasy kidnapping sims that other studios, for a variety of reasons, some of them very practical and legally advisable, uh, uh, yeah, they would never touch that type of game. But we, by changing our processes and the conditions of development, we get to create an environment where that type of thing not just can exist, but can exist comfortably, safely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You mentioned that, like, I think in one of the posts, either the TikTok or your Twitter announcement, the phrase that like different is possible. And I think what's really cool is you are one of the few that who consistently shows the ways in which you want to see that difference happen. And I'm really curious, like, for example, illuminating that 5-game deal and actually like saying, here's like what we're working towards and not just keeping everything behind closed doors. What are some of the other ways you're hoping to, if you're able to share, like model difference in the industry, or like what would you love to see other people do to model difference?
The biggest thing that I'd like to see change is, and that we hope to model, is the idea of holistic development processes. Again, if you're
Mm.
building something that's going to take 8 years, that is a development cycle that you can take on. I'm not advising that we get rid of the largest quadruple A games or of indie games that have very labor intensive and long lasting processes. I just want those to be stepped into intentionally and to have all of the conditions around their development really acknowledged and discussed. So in our case, I'm not trying to advocate that other people make games like Strange Scaffold. I'm not fully sure that it can be done, but I am saying, hey, based off of who you are, off of who your collaborators are, off of your resources and the holistic situation around your game, what is the process that best facilitates that game coming to life, being a satisfying experience and meaningful experience for players, and also you surviving it. And the thing that frustrates and saddens me most about the current state of game development is we talk about a product and its process as two separate things, as if for example you have to spend 6 months to a year to develop a really robust art heavy pitch to get your game funded so you can make the rest of it, that's going to change everything about how you develop a game and what types of games you make. But we don't talk about it that way. And so not acknowledging cause and effect and the power of systems, despite our jobs as game designers and game publishers being around presenting game systems and building processes that result in results, it drives me up the wall. And I am very grateful that the longer Strange Scaffold has continued to operate, the more I'm seeing those conversations happen. Because again, I think that's the only way the medium survives. It's holistic intentional decision making, or the series of lottery wins that have to date left us in such a shattered position.
You mentioned having like multiple teams sort of working on different things. I'm sure an aspect of that might be how heavy of a lift those projects are, but what's the max amount of games being worked at one time? And then I'm just really wild with like the 4 original titles coming down the pipeline. Are there like 18 ideas that are like queued up already ready to go, or was this sort of like, what is that process of being done and then thinking of the next thing? Like, what does that look like for your studio?
So for our studio, it just to tackle the conversations in order, the number of games being worked on at once is, I think right now we're at 6. So there's stuff outside of this deal that we're also working on that is exciting. The max number of things that occurs is a ongoing discussion and consideration. That's something that I'm trying to be very intentional about, especially as I get older. I want to have a family. I want to have kids. So making sure that for life and logistics reasons, as well as not, frankly, overexposing ourselves to risk, it would be really easy to say, okay, 5-game deal. We're gonna make all of them right now. But a conversation I literally had with Frosty Pop, and one of the reasons I knew that they would be a good partner is I said, hey, I want to start some of these games later because I don't want to stretch our capacity and my capacity and our total bandwidth. So the max is always changing. The conversation is always happening around how many games is happening at once and what is healthy and what we can take on. But the intentionality of that process also allows us to, frankly, as you said, take on a wild number of things at once. And beginning projects when it makes sense and when the people are there and when the games would benefit most from moving around the pieces that we've got at our disposal and the collaborators who are present. That's the game design problem that I get to solve every day, and it makes me feel alive.
I will say, just like kind of piggybacking off that really quickly, something that I've always admired about you is just how transparent you are, whether it is a conversation like this or your TikToks talking about your projects or just Strange Scaffold in general. Like, I do very much appreciate how transparent you are in all facets of what you do on a daily basis.
100%.
I think it's really
Thank
important.
you.
I
It's
steal all those
because-
TikToks and put
Yeah.
them in my community. I'm like, this is what is really going on behind the scenes.
Thank you. It's all of that is happening because I was told it was not possible, and now
Yeah.
we've been doing it for 5 years. It's to the point that we actually offer a ride-along program on a selective basis throughout the industry. We right now have 2 people in our dev server who are not our developers who have signed NDAs that we are saying, hey, the only way to know how another studio works is to work with them, which means that we have such selective knowledge in this industry that even if you've worked on mega hits or on big things or on little things, you literally have no insight into other people's process. So we will embed other people in our teams freely and share information freely as is legally allowed, to make sure that others can take what we've learned and look inside of our studio like an ant farm and take that to their next thing. Because again, we were told it's not possible, and now I've just been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like the mission statement of Strange Scaffold. Like, it's not
Appreciate it.
possible. No, it is.
Yeah. And if we got to prove it, well,
Somebody's got to do it.
Black people have spent quite a bit of time doing things that that was told impossible, or that others were like, that's not worth doing. So if I got to be yet another person carrying a standard, so be it.
I also love that every single one of your games sounds like it should have had like an HR meeting. It was like, are we really, is this really? Okay, we're going to have to talk with all kinds of commissions and we're going to put out fires. But I mean, it is so funny the humor that you have with all of these too. Like, obviously, got you
Thank
into a
you.
little hot water with Sunshine Shuffle, which was amazing. But also, was it last GDC you showed up with a bunch of pills for El Paso elsewhere?
Yeah, sure did. That wasn't the one that got me in the most trouble. The one that got me in the most trouble, I think, was
The airport for
the poker chips, but also the airport, an airport for aliens. Sunshine Shuffle had poker chips. An airport for aliens currently run by dogs had boarding passes, which is fine if you have one in your carrying and your carry on. But if you've got 5,000 wrapped up in little rubber bands, then you get in trouble with the TSA.
Yeah. And I know that you have a hard cutoff and we have hit it. I really appreciate you coming on. I hope that we get you on a podcast for the full podcast at some point or another, but you're very busy and important, as we've just heard. So I hope that you have a great time with all of these, and I hope to see you back soon.
I would love to appear. I am never too important for Indie Council, and I really appreciate y'all having me and asking such thoughtful questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess welcome back. I don't think for anybody watching you will have known, but the magic behind the scenes, we cut and have restarted now that Xalavier has left us, and now we're all very sad.
We're lighting.
I don't
Lighting the big candle?
Lighting the big candle.
In his memory.
Some candle ASMR real quick.
We did start a little bit about talking about the Xbox partner preview, considering we had the voice of it right here on the Indie Council. But let's shout out some things that we found particularly interesting. For me, seeing the Sinking City 2 was not what I was expecting to see. For anybody who doesn't know, this particular game has had some rocky times. Frogwares, which is the developer behind the game, was fighting with Nancon. Now I can't say anything. The publisher.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
I think.
For like a really long time, it was a bizarre and sort of really unusually public, nasty spat between the two, with like having the game delisted and not getting paid properly, and all kinds of accusations on both sides, which eventually ended with Frogwares getting the rights to the game and being a full legal publisher in its own right. And that only settled itself like the beginning of this year. So to hear word of a sequel this quickly, good for them. Like, I immediately saw it. Like, of course, I was watching along, and like, it's like monsters and people getting eaten, and I'm like, nope, this is not a game for me. And then I saw what the title, I was like, oh, never mind, definitely interested now. But also, I'm not sure that I'm gonna be playing it. But I want to support the game. This sounds like a Mike game though. Like, did you see this and you were enjoying it?
So I was at the chiropractor while the show was happening, so I have not watched it. I've never messed with the first Sinking City. I know I've been told multiple times it's probably my kind of jam, being just a weird horror joint. But yeah, I'd never delved into it. But delightfully surprised, like you said, to see a sequel pop up. So yeah, maybe I'll start backtracking. I'm looking at this article. Look at the Scary Frogman. I like Scary Frogman.
Yeah.
I'll play this game.
Yeah, I'll watch you play that game up until something scary happens, and I'll run away.
Jill, we really need to start streaming horror stuff together.
No,
we really do. It's gonna be such a delight.
I don't know if that's the word I would use.
Well, I'm using it. So
it's going to be content anyway. Another thing I wanted to shout out was Tales of Zanzara Xiao.
Kanzara,
Sorry.
right?
Kanzara?
Messed it up, but thanks everyone. Is launching officially April 23rd. Much faster than I was expecting.
Yeah.
We got a first look at this back at the Game Awards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks real good.
Did anybody play it during Next Fest?
Yeah,
No.
I played a little bit. I didn't finish the demo because I was just trying to hop into as many as possible, but I enjoyed the demo
Cool.
from what I've played.
Yeah, really excited to see that. I'm glad that it's not March 23rd because we've got so
Thank
much
God.
coming up. But yeah, it's going to be one of those games that I'm very excited to jump into. It's going to be one of those games that I think reignites the question of what is indie, because it is published by EA.
Yeah, it's an
But
EA original.
It's an
title.
EA original, which is the EA program that helps indies. So
Like
y'all can-
most notably, It Takes Two is part
Yes.
of this program.
Yes, it was. So yeah, that'll be interesting when that comes out.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think-
Metroidvania also, in case
Yes.
people... We talk about it a lot, so I feel like the assumptions that if you're listening to the show, you probably know what Zao is, but
Mhm.
in case you missed it, and it looks really cool. It's definitely doing a lot of that, what sort of Prince of Persia evoked earlier this year, with the idea of the abilities being used for like both traversal, but also combat, and having like that bit of difficulty in there. Yeah, it looks really cool, and I feel like it's one of the ones that, like, I think it had that great level of hype cycle where people saw it, they were like, this looks good, cool, and it's like the lead up, you've gotten it a couple other times, and now it's almost ready. So it's been kind of a really nice, I think, lead into this game.
Yeah.
It does scare me between this and Life Eater and a couple other joints that dropped their release dates. April's starting to fill up.
Mhm.
I'm, like, I'm waiting for the next downtime, breathing room to catch up from February still.
Yeah. And then all the showcases that are coming up in
Yeah.
regards to like the events that are happening this month, they're going to like put more things on the calendar. I think that's what 2024 is going to be. We're just going to be like, okay, we're finally going to like take a breather, and then 20 things will be announced.
Sorry ahead of time for March 20th.
And then for me, I think the highlight is always for any showcase, like a game that comes out of nowhere that I wasn't expecting, but looks really good. And for me, this time around, that was Sleight of Hand, which is a third-person stealth action deck builder.
That was the one with like the witch coven
Yes.
story. Yeah, that looked really slick. I like that.
Yeah. I don't
Same.
like, we didn't see any real gameplay. It was just a revealed trailer.
Mhm.
I like the vibes. I enjoy, like, there is a witch. She's been betrayed of some sort. She's after her own coven. Like, she's throwing cards at people and triggering traps, and I'm in. I'm definitely in for this one. So keeping an eye on that. Maybe we'll see it as we go further into the year. Did anybody else see anything on the showcase that they wanted to shout out?
I really liked Creatures of Ava.
Yeah. Mhm.
That one was super, super cute. I love that they took this, like, what is it, the monster tamer genre, and I think they're calling it a creature saver because instead of trying to like tame and fight these monsters, you're trying to save them from this like infection that's on the planet. And you honestly, the trailer just looks so like warm and lush and vibrant, and you have this
Yes.
flute, and so you're like this Pied Piper of the world, like the compassionate, good Pied Piper, not like the evil one. So I'm really excited to see more. I don't think they had any sort of release window. I believe this was just I don't know if it was like, was it a new game announcement? I
I
think
think
it
it was a
was.
reveal. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a brand new one, which I was excited to see. And it's an 11-bit Studios game, which I thought was
Yes.
really interesting considering they have so much darkness in a lot of their games.
Mhm.
So this was also kind of a really refreshing change of pace from them. So I'm excited to see. I think they collaborated. Is it pronounced Chibig?
I'm
They've
going with it.
done, yeah, I think they've done a lot of really cozy games. So to see the partnership, I think between the two, I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah. This was definitely a moment in the showcase where I'm like, let me have some tea. Let me get like all
Mhm.
wrapped up and cozy. And then I can't remember what was after this, but it was like horrific. This might have been
Yeah.
the Sinking City too. And in my chat, I was watching along with everybody live. And I was like, no, let's go back to the cozy game, please. I don't want to be here. Yeah, super excited to see that. Speaking of 11-bit, like they were represented here.
Oh yeah.
Like we got a release date for Frostpunk 2, which I believe was July
25th.
25th.
It's my
Yeah.
birthday. I'm so excited.
Woo! Happy birthday. That looks like the kind of game that if I started playing, I'd never stop. So that's terrifying. And then the altars,
Altars, yeah.
also really interesting, cool concept for a game that's like, what would you do if you could go back and like change your life, but also had to live with those people and accomplish a goal to save your life? Very, very cool.
Yeah.
A little bit of extra details on Sleight of Hand. Apparently heavily inspired by Metal Gear Solid. This is kind
Yeah.
of Joshua Boggs, who's the game director at Riff Raff. It's like his love letter to MGS. So I'm very interested to see what that looks like with some deck building mechanics. Also just love like the aesthetic and the vibe and just how the game, like granted it's cinematics, but like how the cinematics look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really cool.
Yeah, keep an eye out for it. I'll put that the link to it so you can wish list it if you want down below. But yeah, it was a really good partner preview. I thought I like one of the nerdiest things that I was just so excited about for no reason was like every couple of games or so they would have like a second to just cap what they had shown. And I was like,
I
this
do
is
love that.
perfect. This
I wrote that down because I was so excited. I'm so happy you mentioned that because I wrote that down in my notes for the show where I was just like, thank you to whoever put those like summary cards in periodically because it's
Mhm.
the reason why I was able to recall like, oh yeah, Ava was a new game because they had the little shiny medal
Yeah.
that's popped up next to it.
Yeah.
Awesome idea.
peeling the curtain back a little bit, that when they did the first partner preview show, me and Kyle were like, oh, we should take that.
Yeah, seal it, please, Mike.
But just the way we format and film things, it would have felt too weird because we don't just do like trailer. Like we have like our interstitials. So like we felt it was too much, but we're keeping it in our back pockets because we do like, it is such like a brilliant thing, like recap mid show.
It's like a nice little like breather. You get a second to kind of think about what you've just seen. And as someone who has had to cover shows like that before, having just a cheat sheet pop up during the show is like, oh, this is perfect. Thank you so much for having this. So I loved it. I liked the show itself. Production value was good. And I also liked what showed up. I think there were plenty of people in the chat who were throwing out the name of the game that shall not be named. But I don't think we're going to see that at an Xbox event. So
yeah, Goobies 2 is too big nowadays. So
it can't be denied. It can't be held by one platform. Speaking of good news, Finji has its 10th anniversary, I think today officially, when we're recording, which is Wednesday. And to celebrate, they have re-released Cannibalt as a free browser game. This is not a game that I am particularly aware of, even though I love Finji. So I definitely need to jump into this and see what is going on below the surface. Does anybody have working knowledge of this game?
Okay. I just booted it. It's very loud.
You heard it here.
That's why I'm wincing.
The Indie Council scoop. Cannibalt, very loud.
Yeah. It says that it's the game that popularized the infinite runner genre. It's back with a 2-player mode, new challenges, new music, achievements, and leaderboards.
So you're this little man and you're running on a rooftop and you're jumping over the gaps. That's what you're doing.
Some classic gameplay right there.
Game over.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Mike's just going to be doing that for the rest of the council.
Yeah, I also missed this one back in 2015 when this dropped, which I think that's kind of fair. I was just sort of busy at school, just doing other things. But yeah, that's cool to see, Finji hit that milestone. And I think they're definitely like, when we talk about those sort of indie staples, like whether it's like publisher or like franchises, like Finji's definitely up there. And look, it's already taken Mike. So there you go.
That's all of it. That's what he's going to be talking about at the end of the show.
It's really good. It's really good.
Okay.
Great.
That's going to be. This is great content. All of us just staring at the screen going, okay, let's just jump.
I'll be happy if I hit 1,000. No, that's 658. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. I'm sorry. I believe in you and your ability to get 1,000 though at some point.
Thanks.
We did recently.
The mic squeak.
Yeah.
It was so loud.
Speaking of all the showcases and all the events that are coming up, the Mix/Kind of Funny's Spring Showcase just recently announced all of the games that are going to be highlighted during their showcase, which I think is a really cool. Again, we were talking about transparency and like this tends to be a very secretive industry, and to know what games you have to look forward to, very cool. There were a lot of really good names on this list. Like Until Then caught my eye. Yeah. And then I was like, I only noticed the first page when I first kind of opened this up. And then I went to the third page and I'm like, dang, this is all bangers up here. So what else do we have? We have
like Bubblegum Galaxy is on there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that.
Duck Detective, The Secret Salami. If you have not played this game yet, it's so fun. Please do check it out. What was the other one that was really big on me? I have it in a really small format right now, which is not helping anybody. But yeah, it's just banger after banger of indie games. I am interested to see how this works. I know, like, I'm sort of tempted to just sort of show up.
So the way
walk through the showcase.
The way this like, when is this dropping? Like for people that aren't familiar with the Mix, like when's this dropping? What is this? Physical versus digital? Can someone kind of run?
Yeah. So the kickoff show, which is like the usual Mix showcase, like the digital showcase, is on March 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, and then the on-site showcase is March 18th. I think it's like right around the corner from the Moscone Center. That starts at 7 p.m. Pacific. and just a tiny little correction with some of the all those games. All the link that's in the doc, that's all 400 of like the games that they've shown in the history of the mix.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I linked what they have announced so far for 2024, which they've announced 33 of the 83 games.
Okay. I really love that though. It's
Yeah.
like something to like actually get you to watch, because like the difference between an indie game showcase and like a AAA showcase is like part of the fun of a AAA showcase is trying to figure out what's going to be there, because it's like you don't have that many options. You know, if Sony is doing something, you're like, okay, who are all the Sony developers that are working on something and that didn't just finish a project? So you know these things, but for like a lot of people, they're not thinking about like squirrel with a gun off the top of their head, you know?
I always
I
do.
feel like more than you think though. But I get what you mean, where it's the unexpected as well. Like obviously there are those expected like indies that, well, not for the mix, but like, you know, the joke of like, oh, where's the new Hollow Knight, or where's what's that game, that PlayStation game the guys like walking around?
Little devil.
Spider-Man?
Little Devil Inside. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Spider-Man, of course.
Spider-Man was it. Good job, Mike.
So there are those, but other than that, like it's also that idea of the anticipation of what's going to be, you know, your next big thing, I think is also sort of what this is kind of inviting. And it works kind of to its, God, what's the opposite of detriment? It's not detriment, but it's the only thing my mind thought of. But it helps make it a little bit more interesting, because there isn't that expectation of needing something. It's like, hey, like we're going to throw a bunch of things at you, and hopefully you find things that speak to you personally, rather than, hey, I have this list of things I want to hear from who's showing up.
Which should include Duck Detective: The Secret Salami.
That is on my list, actually.
I love that team.
I think Demon
So
School seems to be on here. Animal Well for other. I think this is the right list. I think this is the one Mike linked. But for stuff that I personally haven't seen like a lot of yet, like for myself, like Slider looks really interesting. It kind of looks like this combo of Minute meets, like, funnily enough, that sliding game where I'm like, I think this game could be like the next hot thing. I forgot the name of it. The puzzle.
Oh, Arranger.
Yes. Man, I'm so lucky I have y'all, because I will say 8 nouns, and you're like, is it this title? I'm like, yes, thank you.
No, Janet, we're lucky to have you.
Yes, 100%.
Oh,
Yeah, the mix is awesome. So this should be a lot of fun. I think event wise too, it's kind of one of my favorites, because it is so much more low key. Like there aren't even in the indie space necessarily those like, oh, everyone's going to be covering this. So I find it a lot easier to walk up and play things than at even something like Day of the Devs might have a little bit more of, I don't know, a hotter, more known studio, while this is just more like a series of projects. It has like a really nice laid back vibe to it that I enjoy.
Really good, like hangout sort of vibes.
I think the first time we all saw each other in person was at the mix at PAX. So
yeah, that's just like credit to like Justin and his team at the mix. Like they just know what they're trying to achieve, and they achieve it like in terms of tone and vibe. And I think nowadays, and this is not like a diss or anything, the like Day of the Devs is more, I don't know, it's more, if you want to call it formal. Yeah, I guess that's like the word I'm trying to look for.
It's a press thing.
You know what I realized is the difference? Because even the mix might have like press hours sometimes, which they have the same deal.
They do.
Like press hours and then an open. But I think I clocked really like one of the main differences is there's no appointments at the mix. Yeah. Well, like Day of the Devs, it's like, and I love Day of the Devs, but it's like, it's a lot of those appointment things, and I actually prefer to, and you can just not go, which is what I do. Like, I'm like, I'd rather just walk up and walk around than feel like, let me think about what I might want to see and then lock in to commit to seeing 30 minutes. Like I feel like they're best when you can kind of float, which again, you can have that experience at Day of the Devs, but since the mix only allows for that experience, everyone kind of takes their foot off the gas in that way. And it's like, hey, let's go around and see, what speaks to you. Like, let's just go. You don't have another appointment because you can't. It's the mix. So we can just kind of walk around and hang out.
I think Janet is now on their like PR team.
Hey man, the PR's itself. It's like it's funny because I actually like thought of you, Jill. Jill, you're always booked at appointments. It's like finally, Jill can't book an appointment at the mix, and we can just walk around.
I can actually
play
talk
games
to
together.
people. I'm like, oh man, this is the time just before, like a couple of weeks, the week before an event, where I go from being like, okay, I'm feeling good with my schedule and how busy it is, to like, oh no, I've definitely way overbooked myself. Like, I'm getting there, you know? It
Yeah.
happens.
I learned my lesson. I have no appointments so far for PAX
Hell
East, and it
yeah,
is
let's
lovely.
go.
Okay, and this
I have
is
like
a
two or three.
lovely time to segue into our topic of the show, which is East versus West, the great PAX versus GDC debate. Are you
Finally.
ready?
The people
It
have been
is-
waiting.
Yes, the
Eons.
show everyone's been waiting for. Our teams consist of Team GDC, which is me and Janet, and Jenny. What who threw this in here?
Oh, I threw that in like
Oh,
2 days
okay.
ago, but I
Sorry,
said
Jenny,
I'm happy
didn't
to
notice
be.
that.
No, I'm
Do you
happy
want
to
to be on
PAX
Team
East.
GDC? Do you
No.
want to? Do you want to trade?
I'm Dark
really fast?
Pedestal with Mike. All
Okay,
Yeah.
Dark Pedestal with Mike. She's a secret sleeper agent for us. And Team PAX East with Jenny and Mike. Bum, bum, bum.
Bow, bow, bow.
I've written in
They
the
have the
doc there
candle on
will
their
be
side.
a winner.
The ritual has begun.
Yes. So I'm not really sure like how this debate should kick off. But
Well,
It's
Maybe
it's
we
your
should
idea,
talk
Jill.
about
So
what
Well,
each of these are, because
yes.
maybe there's
Yeah.
someone who doesn't know
Yes.
like what GDC is, for example.
and I'd love to know. And funnily enough, I'm on Team GDC, but it's like it's my first time at GDC, so I don't know.
Woo.
You know, but I think another thing that we should touch on after the setup, which I think is a great like rec Jenny, like what are these shows, but also like what do they look like on the indie side of things? Like kind of for an indie fan, what kind of things can you expect to get to enjoy at these events?
Mhm.
Okay. So GDC is a an event that's very personally close to me because I like physically live in the Bay Area. So GDC always takes place in San Francisco. It always takes place during the spring, usually in March at some point. And it always to me represented the beginning of the gaming schedule for the year. It is literally springtime, but also the springtime of gaming because everything is feeling fresh and new and things are getting announced. GDC stands for Game Developer Conference. And as its name sort of implies, it is a conference geared towards the industry and more often than not game developers. And so it's not typically a hotbed for press, even though press do cover if they have people nearby or something big is happening. It is structured around, it has a show floor which is open a couple of days, but for most of GDC the big thing that's happening are lectures, kind of structured lectures where big names, small names, everyone in between goes up to a podium at a set scheduled time and just shares their knowledge with everybody in the room. So you can learn how Spider-Man made its textures, a lecture I literally went to and everything went over my head, but I still had to cover it anyway. Or you can talk about hear about indies not making the money that they thought they were going to make and how they deal with that. Uh, and they can range from very technical and very business-like to extremely personal and touching. Um, and it really is open for if you have the badge to go into different things, like you're open to just go in and take a seat. It's not like, oh, it's sold out or anything. Like you show up the day and usually stand in a line if it's really popular. And sit there and you learn from the industry. And the biggest fun thing about GDC is that it's not really a fan event. Fans do go. You can go and have a lot of fun. But the biggest thing about GDC is a lot of GDC happens away from GDC. I would say probably for if you're press or someone in the industry, uh, most of it happens away from GDC. I have to physically make time to go to the show floor because you are getting so much more. Like if you're in San Francisco that week, stop into any of the lobbies for the hotels that are nearby. You will see people and hear things that you would not believe. Like it is amazing how it's like I heard someone
It's
describe
like a
it
gossip
as
show.
Yeah,
It's the Gossip Developers Conference.
I had
Y'all, did you hear
someone
that man talking about licking feet? That's wild. That game's gonna be crazy.
like
Yeah.
when you're on the BARD and people are not guarded about what they're saying. I'm like, I'm a journalist sitting here like, y'all should not be saying what you're saying right now. So it's a great place to kind of seed if you're someone who's like a investigation journalist. Um, ideas for maybe looking into like, oh, maybe that is a studio I should be looking at, sort of thing. But also, it's just like I had someone describe it as being sort of like a college campus for that week
Mm.
of like everybody is sort of here for the same reason. We're all the same people. Like these are our people. It's a comfortable sort of environment where we all sort of understand gaming. Like gaming's the culture of that moment. So walking into any hotel, you will hear high level discussions about games, which are so much fun. So yeah, I really enjoy going to PAX East, and that's you're not gonna see
Oh, PAX East.
cosplay or like a lot of fan things for this, but like if you're into the industry part of this industry, like this is the place to go. That might have been a little long. Who wants to
Nailed it.
Anybody want to take over for the PAX East side of things? What is PAX East?
Jenny, me or you?
Sure. I can start, and then you can
Okay.
like I'll like set it up, so that you can spike it.
See, Team
Um,
PAX very collaborative. You know, one point.
Already 1 point.
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm just gonna let Jill go because I've never gone to the show. I also want to add to what Jill said and say the same thing but slightly
Yep.
different. So, boom.
Good point. Good point.
Inquisitive.
Janet.
Did you not hear my Gossip Developers Conference joke? Come
Yep.
on.
That was
that was worth a
excellent.
point. That was worth
Deserving of a point. Okay. 1 point for each team.
So PAX is Penny Arcade Expo. This is a little bit different from GDC in that this was intentionally created to be a consumer-focused showcase. And so when you attend, you still get a similar format of like there are panels that you can listen to learn things, but instead of coming at it from a perspective of developers and industry folks sharing knowledge to other industry folks for learning, a lot of it is like, hey, let's celebrate like the fandoms that we love, maybe celebrate lore from games that we're excited about, maybe we get to see some content creators we love. So it's a much more kind of like casual in the sense of just it's not an academic or like professional development sort of atmosphere, but there's also a show floor with lots of games to try. I think PAX East for me has one of the stronger indie presences of the consumer showcases, especially because just the layout of the show floor itself is like just a straight line. Like you have these escalators, you go down, you can just walk a straight line down and up the aisles and see all the games. It's so organized and good.
We won't talk about
and-
West.
we won't talk about West.
Mm-mm.
That's just I got my steps in for West, and that's all I can say. My calves were looking great by the end of
Mhm.
West. And it's just a really good opportunity, I think, to celebrate sort of the players of games in addition to have, like, from the dev side, really celebrate and finally get to see your game played by people. I think that's, for me, from the developer's perspective, like, for Spirit Swap, we actually showed our game at PAX West this last year, and it was just sort of just really rejuvenating to, after working on this for so many years, kind of growing to be like, do we actually even like this game? What are we making this for? Seeing people play it, that kind of bolsters morale. And so from the dev side, it's hugely heartening to be able to, if you can afford to go to these showcases, have that be a part of your experience. So I'll let you add on to that, Mike.
Lovely description, Jenny.
Thanks.
Yeah, kind of adding on to it, it's similar to GDC in terms of the vibe. Like, you know, the something we touch on in previous episodes, however, whenever we've touched on this, the games industry, and I would say even more so the indie scene, is a big old happy family. Then, like, it's one of those kind of situations that you go to the Westin like the night before a PAX or like after the show floor closes, and you just hang out, even if it is somebody you've never talked to before or never met before or just had like minor communications online. It's always just such a warm, welcoming experience that you could just kind of have a great conversation with. It's also an opportunity, and I think this is like the selfish part of it, but like the delightful selfish part of it, of we're all over the place. We're all so fractured. So it is like these tentpole moments of like getting to see all of our friends that we only get to see once, maybe twice a year if we're lucky. But yeah, like Jenny said, it's a great consumer show. It is a great opportunity to really connect with the developers and provide that honest feedback. Similar to the notion on Spirit Swap, there are so many times like a lot of clients of mine like show their games and they just get such valuable feedback that they implement straight away into their current builds, and like it really goes into really takes the rest of the timeline, or really affects like the rest of the production timeline, the rest of like the PR timeline and whatnot. So it is vital to get that consumer connection. And yeah, just in general, also Boston is a great city. I love just hanging out in Boston for the weekend. Same with San Francisco, somewhat with Seattle. But yeah, it's a good time. I'm very excited. The ramp up and like getting there, and in my particular case, like that Wednesday before being my our showcase day, always stressful. But like once we're there, once the showcase is through, and once like you start seeing people and get your calendars all sorted, it's it's a real like rejuvenating kind of weekend that I feel like we all desperately need sometimes. That's like the most important bit for me.
Yeah, 100%. As far as indies go for these particular shows, indies at GDC are like they have their own summit, which is not really a separate physical thing, but it is a specific highlight where the organizers of the show specifically reach out to make sure that indie games, indie developers, indie studios are getting spots on the list for lectures. So it is not only good to share information for indies, but it is a good like the nature of developers talking to other developers and telling them how they do things. There is really no other space in this industry where that happens. Like we were just talking with Xalavier about how that is a unusual practice. This is like the 1 week of the year where everything's kind of topsy-turvy and you can just ask anybody sort of anything and people are willing to tell you basically anything about whatever their topic is. So for indie developers, it's very, very important because you can go in and like maybe you've been butting your head up against a problem that someone's specifically giving a talk about, and there you go. You've solved the problem. Or maybe something you didn't even know was going to be a problem is solved before you even get there because you learn about different things. And it is again the indie, like the games industry itself is fairly small, like considering how big it seems. The people all pretty much know each other, but even smaller than that is the indie space where everyone really knows each other. So you cannot overstate how important it is to make these connections even informally when you're just like walking down the street and you see someone, you're like, hey, I didn't know that you were doing this.
When you're walking down the street, there's somebody that you meet.
Another point for GDC team.
Yeah,
Another
thank you,
point. Yeah,
thank
please.
you. Our
Okay.
teams, I broke into song.
I promise I have more than dumb comments. So far, Jill's like, here's the information. And I'm like, just waiting to pick my spot.
I imagined you in a big chair just like kicking your feet.
No, I sit cross-legged because my feet are too short to touch the ground. But I mean, like, you're obviously speaking to Jill, like the connections between developers, and at the end of the day, like it's funny that you're like, oh, this is the verses, because like, I mean, at the end of the day, like if you're a consumer, like one's a consumer show and one's not.
Yeah.
But but I will say, like, and it's also a weird spot for me to say because I haven't gone yet. But one reason this has been on my list for a long time. I haven't gone because it's very expensive to, if you don't get credentialed.
Janet, you don't need to talk about that part.
Right, but so it's like, if you want to be broke, go to. No, I was kidding. Like this, I came here to flex. No, I'm kidding. I got a press badge, so that's why I'm able to attend, which I'm very excited about. But on that note, I think even as an indie fan, which like I'm obviously pressed, but I do sit on like the fandom side of things as well. Like on thinking of that indie space and those talks, like I'm excited to maybe the technical stuff goes over my head. Like I don't understand, like the development, the technicality that goes into development, but stuff like they have a panel that's Venba, an intimate journey through sound. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I want to check that out and hear that perspective of the making of that thing. Or they talk about, the merits of making your own game engine. Just again, you might not be able to understand everything in its entirety, but also like that's kind of part of what learning is, right? Maybe this piques curiosity. Maybe it adds a layer of, maybe you can ask more interesting questions from this, or have a more in-depth level of engagement with different pieces of these video games. Like I feel like my excitement as like from the fan perspective / press perspective going to GDC and hearing some of these talks is the hype that I got out of that earlier conversation we just had with Xalavier, right? Like I think if you heard that and you're like, oh my God, I want more of this, like GDC, hello. Like there's nothing but that. And I think that's really cool. And again, wish it was easier to attend these kind of things and put it on and kind of, get those benefits. But the idea of finally getting to hear from so much of this expertise like in that space is really exciting, even just from like the indie front of people talking about how do they make these games happen? What are they like dealing with? What's the technical aspect? What's the business aspect? How do you go from the ground up to like learn stuff? And there's like things that even I've like been following for some time. Like I just saw that Derek Liu has making the trailer before the game, and I'm like, oh, I've been following them on TikTok for like ever, and I'm like, oh, these are like some of my favorite TikToks that I watch. So the idea of you're telling me I can get 30 minutes of them like breaking this down, like that sounds awesome. And I feel like that is the value that from the conference side of things that GDC does offer. And yes, it's expensive as hell, but it is cool if you get to go because it's so freaking cool. Like I'm a nerd, so like the idea of college campus again, it's like, yes, I'm gonna be there taking my notes. Where am I posting this? I don't know. I just want to think my thoughts, right? It's exciting to just get to hear experts talk about their expertise.
Speaking of experts talking about their expertise, I just want to shout out the fact that Jenny is giving a talk. Do you want to talk about that really fast, Jenny?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I do get to do one of those 30-minute talks sharing knowledge. My talk is part of the community sort of like sessions that happen because they divide up the sessions based on sort of the region, not region, what's the word? Your like sphere of industry. And so my talk is titled Streamers Don't Want to Play Your Game. And it's really going to be about it's really going to be about the best practices and how to position yourself when interacting with content creators, because so often that sentiment of like streamers don't want to play your game or my game is not necessarily the mentality to go about this kind of outreach. And so I'll be presenting why and how people can do a little bit better and hopefully get some coverage for their game instead of sitting and thinking like that.
I love it. And I think that's deserving of a Team GDC point.
Yeah.
There's also a really cool PAX panel that Jenny's on as well about the Game Boy, the best console out. Wait, the DS?
The Game Boy the DS. We're doing the DS. Last time we did the Game Boy Advance. I got confused. So but I'm also on the video game Tinder panel, which is going to be really fun.
That's 2 points. Look at that.
That's going to be pretty fun.
Jenny, do one more GDC talk.
Not to tease something like that may not ever happen, and not to tease something like a year out. Jenny and I have a GDC talk idea that we want to pitch for next year. That's like, it's a banger.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited.
I'm really excited to hopefully do that.
Hell yeah. I want to hear about that. PAX East, I will allow you to take the floor for rebuttal.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, the bias is really showing through here. It's like I'm playing, but I also decide who wins.
Yeah.
It's weird when one side is also the host of the podcast.
I will the audience in chat, go ahead and put your votes for who won the debate, so that I can be fair and impartial. But
Jill's gonna be leading the comments on there. It's like, the page that you run. Okay.
All these different comments that look exactly the same are going to show up. Do you want to rebut the greatness of GDC?
Yes. I would like to.
Is that a word? Also, rebut.
The floor is yours.
Rebut.
Rebut. That's
what
I'm
saying.
Rebut.
I like that.
Rebut is a word. All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. See,
look,
I didn't make it up.
Look, we're learning. You can keep learning at GDC.
GDC point.
but you have fun at PAX East. You know what I'm saying? So
That's true. You're all drinking, doing karaoke. I came
Yeah.
to study, okay?
yeah, listen, Limelight karaoke probably is worse. Actually, I shouldn't dox that. I don't know. Never mind. Never mind. You didn't hear that. Touching on the indie side of things. So yeah, PAX. I've noticed, and Jenny, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Like I've noticed there's a definite shift between pre-lockdown and post-lockdown. Pre-lockdown PAX, like you did get your Sonys, you did get your big publisher, Square Enix, whatever it may be. After lockdown, I think that's when the big guys noticed or came to the realization that PAX and having these big booth spaces and like these big like show stopping, oh my God, look at this thing I need to take a picture with, is very expensive. So you've like something I've realized or noticed like in the years post lockdown, big focus on indies, and indies are really taking over the show floor. Even looking at 2024, I have, because my face is illuminating so hot right now, I have the expo floor up at the moment, and doing a quick scroll, it's legit Final Fantasy 14, Larian for that game that everybody loves. Why am I blanking on that game? Baldur's Gate. There it is. And Pokemon. Those are like the big three that I'm noticing. Everything else is either like obviously merch, because it's a consumer show, you could buy some merch, or like a college like the Academy of Art University, and I think there's a local Boston college showing off some student projects. So it does feel like we are in this shift, and maybe it's the shift is done, that PAX is very much an indie focused show, and something I really appreciate about it, and especially it being a consumer show, it is such a phenomenal place for indie discovery. The best stuff that's around PAX, both East and West, around the walls. The best stuff is just around the walls. That's where you get like your really small boots, your really grassroots 1 to 2 person team, weird experimental experiences. So yeah, I really love, people do criticize like, Sony's not here anymore, Square Enix ain't here anymore, aside from Final Fantasy, but as an example. But I really do think it's a stronger show now, be able to kind of put the spotlight on more indies. Something I do want back desperately, and hopefully we do see it in the years to come, because they did announce their resurgence, is the indie
mega booth.
Thank you. Yes, the indie mega booth. Jesus. That's something that is desperately missed on the PAX show floor, in my opinion. And PAX Rising is definitely trying to fill those shoes, I think, but PAX Rising is definitely more limited. I think this time around it's 12 games that got that spot. And if you're unfamiliar, PAX Rising, the folks behind PAX choose a number of games, and the games that are chosen, they get the booth space essentially paid for, and the equipment that comes with it. So that obviously allows a lot of indie developers to, well, at least 12 at a time, to be able to show their games to an audience. But the mega booth back in the day, I mean, it was like maybe like 30 games, if that, like in just massive area of the show floor. And going back to that experimental comment, there was just some weird stuff, and weird in the best way possible. I think that was the first time I met Kyle Seeley for Emily's Away. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, PAX is cool. It's a fun time, and it's a really big positive indie space, and it gets indies in front of a lot of general gaming audiences.
Yeah, I think the GDC, like the academic in me loves GDC and the panels, but I think in terms of accessibility, I feel like PAX for me just wins, quote unquote, for like the general audience, just because you can actually like GDC is prohibitively expensive, and they should change on honestly what they have there.
There's a reason a lot of the meetings happen not at GDC.
Yeah, there's a reason why a lot of GDC is not at GDC. But I also wanted to say, I think if you are strategic about the panels that you go to at PAX, they tend to be less academic, but there are some that I think if you really do want to like take notes or learn about game development development. There are like the gems kind of hidden throughout there. Like shameless self-plug, but I'm also on a panel about like grief in video games, and we're going to be discussing like the ways thematically games approach like heavier topics. And so if you're interested in academic and note-taking elements, I think you can still find it at PAX. It will be much more limited than GDC, but still
It's another point.
worthwhile.
I'll give it a half point for being a little limited.
I'm sorry, you're giving grief a half point? Jeez.
Wow.
How inconsiderate.
It's like, get over it. I was
Jeez.
Just suck it up.
There's even things like, yeah, kind of touching on the panels, you get a little bit of everything. Like you do get some of the educational stuff. You do get some stuff that's like really informative. There are even things, and I know I just mentioned it being indie heavy, all that kind of stuff, but like the Cyberpunk team is going to be there just talking about the whole whirlwind development cycle that was Cyberpunk 2077. And I'm sure that's going to be a jam-packed panel, that is going to be really interesting. And then there's just the fun stuff like the Nintendo DS panel that Jenny is on. That's always a great time. Shout out Jacob McCourt. There's a bunch of game show stuff. There's obviously the Kind of Funny crew doing Game Showdown live at PAX East. So I love that there is literally something for everybody, which is really nice.
Yeah. As for Team GDC, I enjoy GDC more than PAX.
How dare you?
Because
Hold on. I want to interrupt.
okay, go ahead. Mike.
You've never done an East, right?
I've never done an East.
Yeah, West.
I'll say that.
Oh yeah, what?
West is fine at best.
Okay, but just
I will say,
in general,
Especially because West
GDC
split up those buildings. Right, that was West that did that.
Yeah.
That was West.
yeah,
Yeah.
West did that.
I will say
that was-
GDC is really nice because, like, from a developer perspective, it is really nice to be at an event where you're like, oh, it's just fellow devs. We all get it. We're all
Point to
tired.
GDC.
Jenny, stop. You're
I
on my team.
know. I'm sorry. I am the sleeper agent. We established.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I
betray
think
me.
also East has an element because it is a consumer show. It does have that element of sort of the worst parts of going to like a theme
With the
park.
normies.
So
I call it
The truth comes out. It's like GC's the elitist place. It's the elitist podium. Like
no, because you are getting two things, and if you are not someone like me who has an appointment, who's stopping by, like you are in a line all day. That's what
Yeah.
your day is going to be. You are lining up to see something. Like you're going to be around people that are also excited, but like that's going to be a lot of what your day is. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance in the show floor at PAX that is not at GDC, which helps alleviate some of that, but it does not completely disappear it. I think for me as a press, PAX to me is a little weird because you are either, in best case scenario, there is a little booth, like there's a little tiny box in the booth hidden back in a secret entrance somewhere where you can sit down and play a game, and do your preview that way. But in a lot of the cases, you are literally just kicking someone out who has waited for an hour or 2 hours to play this game, and they hate you, and everyone in the line hates you. And they're like, "Why do you get to cut the line?" So like,
everyone on the line is on their phone, Jill. Like no one's. It's fine. Don't worry about it. They were given a complimentary pin or something, probably.
the pennies. Yeah, they're trading the pennies. It's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
time.
So which is another reason why I love GDC so much. And there's like an element of GDC of being like kind of speak easy-ish because like you know the places to go, then you're going like you're not going to the show floor to check stuff out if you are press. That's really not what's happening. Either you're going to events like the Mix or Day of the Devs, but a lot of times you will get reached out to by developers or PR and saying like, "Hey, we are setting up a press suite in this hotel. Come by." And then you go in and it's like a lovely luxurious like view of the bay and like there, "Do you want a water or a cookie?" I'm like, "I love cookies." So you're like smacking them away on your cookies, you're like playing a game. Like it is a really fun experience. And you get to have a quiet as unanxious as it can be experience talking with the dev and really asking questions that they're more likely to be in the mood to answer because they're not surrounded by the hustle and bustle. They're not worried anyone's going to overhear anything.
Which
Yeah, it is
apparently they need to worry about because Jill's on the bus listening to everyone's conversation.
Jill's just planting bugs
like-
all over the place.
got a stethoscope. Yeah, it is really fun in that way, which is why my inbox has been absolutely flooded for the past, this week has been wild, and I'm trying not to think about how many messages may or may not be popping up at this moment as I'm speaking to you all. But
Yeah.
it's a good
So
problem.
on that note, I do just want to throw out, if any devs, publishers, whoever may be that are attending GDC and or PAX, and you have emailed one or all of us and we have not answered your email, not intentional, no
So
harm.
sorry.
We're just flooded at the moment. I don't know what y'all system is, but I have a PAX East folder in our 6.1 inbox. Everything's just currently going in the folder. When I have the time, we're going to go through each email. We'll make our appointments if we need to. So please don't be offended. If anybody listening is like, these bastards.
I know I have at least one email from Vicarious Mike that I was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
So I apologize. But yeah, that's where my neuroses really doesn't help in these situations, because I can't not look at an email. I've had people praise me because I'm 100% open rate for my emails, because I literally can't not.
I'm the
I
same
have
way.
to clear them. So seeing your, I think it was a tweet, Janet, a couple of days ago
Yeah.
about how you had not looked at your email for days, physically gave me a panic attack. I was like, I cannot imagine the
You're
amount
really
of
going
things.
through it over there.
Sounds like another point for PAX. It's more relaxing. It's a good vibe. I ain't
I'm
getting
gonna
panic
give
attacks.
a point to GDC for the cookies, though.
Yeah, that's.
I'll take a point for PAX for Shake Shack.
I do understand though the secondhand stress. That's what I call
Yeah.
that when I see someone
Mhm.
having stress. Although I wasn't. Well, I guess I was stressed. But I wasn't stressed because I hadn't done it. I was just stressed because it hadn't been done, which I realize sounds like it's the same thing, but it's not. It's not like, oh my god, I haven't done it. It's like I just want this done. I don't. If someone else
Yeah,
could
I
do
totally
it, I
get
would
that.
give $5 to just be like, hey, can you just reset this for me? And I come back and it's clean. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't get notifications on my emails because I don't want to deal with. Basically, I don't want to end up falling into that hole that you're in, Jill, where you're like, I gotta open it, I don't want to feel that all the time. So it's like I'm gonna do it on my own time, and sometimes I don't have my own time. And I was like, oops, I fell really behind on it. But anyway,
Yeah,
The little
Janet's
red
just
numbers
too-
give me
so
anxiety.
busy. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I just turned
That's
it
not a
off.
joke.
So then I don't
No.
have that. That's why I don't have them on. I only get notifications for text messages, maybe some things on Discord. I'll leave it open but that's very limited. It's you guys, and that's kind of it. Everything, all servers are muted. I can't do it. But
I do have servers mostly muted, except for
Yeah.
work stuff and you guys.
I also want to give GDC a point because Day of the Devs is there, and that's great. The mix
Yeah.
is there, and that's great.
that is good. Yeah, but the mix is at PAX
Mhm.
too, isn't it? Isn't there
Not
a-
east, but
Not
west.
east.
Oh, on
yeah.
West.
Was it
Okay,
West?
I do think that is an extra point. 'Cause
Yeah.
that is
It is. Yeah.
that is some cool. The ancillary stuff is very cool and helps.
Mhm.
I think any event that you're having is amplified. It's kind of like what Jeff's doing with SGF, right? Where it has those extra things where
Yeah.
it's oh, it's all part of the thing. And it's is it? He's like, I wrote it on the poster, and I'm like, I mean, that is true.
All right, yeah, you're
That's
claiming it.
the
All right,
sign.
sure.
Yeah, you got it.
PAX, or at PAX, I should say, Playcrafting, they used to do something called Pre-Gamer the Wednesday before East officially begins. If you're familiar with the Westin, this could be a wild way to explain this, but you walk in and on the left there are other bars, and it seems like separate businesses. One of them is a bar. I think it's a comedy club, but Playcrafting used to take over that comedy club the night before PAX East, and it was a totally free thing. You walk in, all you have to do is pay for drinks and stuff, but you could just walk in and they have a bunch of indie developers with PCs showing off their games. That's something that hasn't happened since we came back from lockdown. Something I really hope does come back, because it is one of those extra things that it's a nice warm up to PAX. It's a nice chance to kind of meet the devs that can't really afford that booth space, because it's totally free for them to or back in the day it was totally free for them to show off their game at that kind of pre-gamer event. Something I also really miss. But yeah, having the mix be with GDC and also PAX West is definitely a plus. Like it's just that bonus activity.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to argue for GDC getting a point. I mean, I'll probably have more points as we go along, as I come up with them as you guys were saying things. Now I've completely forgotten what it was.
Yeah,
That's not
take a point away.
No,
In
I
confidence.
can't take a point away. It is nice though that I live there, and it's completely
yeah.
personal. But like being able to sleep in your own bed after a day of like appointments, and then like having your lovely partner have a homemade meal for you. When
Well,
you
here's a
get
question
home.
though about that, Jill,
fantastic.
because I
Yep.
call that like the home field advantage, right?
Yep.
But do you feel like people expect you to like almost like go harder because you're at home? Like, or do you feel like you can't be like, oh, I can't be like the punk because I didn't even travel for this. Like, I got to be on my P's and Q's because everyone else is like out of town, down, you know?
Not really. I think that there are people. I'm very happy to like explain, like, hey, maybe you should be taking Bart for things instead of like. I remember this conversation, I think, very specifically with like Ben Hanton when he was at GDC at
Oh,
one
his like
point.
2-mile walks every day.
They were going to like Oakland and they were going to take a taxi, and I'm like, why would you do that? But Bart's scary for a lot of people. I get it, but it's not. It's fun. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Hit me up.
it's a work expense. Granted, Ben owns the company, so I feel that probably hits more personal for him. But like, I'm going wherever
Ben
I need
can
to
handle
go
it.
with exactly. Like he's fine.
Ben got it. It's fine.
Yeah. What are we saving it for?
I would like to discuss the elephant in the room also of, and this is a point away from PAX because I feel like it's a Reed Pop thing. 2 years in a row. Could we not do the overlapping thing?
Yes, that was going to be my discussion. Darn it. Go ahead, Mike.
So for the uninitiated,
yeah,
and also I forgot to say, Janet, you call them normies. For me, it's civilian badges. Anyways,
wow, that's. It's funny because it sounds less mean, but it's actually kind of meaner in a way. Like,
it's more formal.
And it's like, well, it's meaner to us too because it's like, dang, we're like in this military.
Yeah, we're the elite.
Jeez.
Yeah, for those who are unfamiliar,
point away for being the elitist.
Yeah, so GDC is happening. What's the official date? March 15th, I think, is the official first day. Something like that.
I think it's the 18th.
It's
18th?
18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So GDC is happening March 18th through, I believe, the 22nd. And PAX East is happening the 21st through the 25th. So there is overlapping happening. And if you are unfamiliar with the United States, San Francisco and Boston are on the opposite end of the country. And there are some brave individuals, like one Jenny Wyndham,
brave
suckers is what you're actually trying to say,
who do both. And yeah, so Jenny, what's your plan for traveling? Like,
well, I mean, my GDC is truncated, so I am there. Basically, I arrive Sunday, I leave Wednesday, and then so I leave Wednesday evening, so I get to Boston like Thursday morning, and then just like hit the ground running, basically.
God bless you.
I know.
Yeah, I 3 years ago, PAX was in April, and it was great. And it must be a cost thing. Like maybe the convention center is cheaper in March, and like as the weather's getting warmer, maybe the prices jack up. Could be that. I wish there was at least like 1 week.
Yeah.
Like some sort of separation, because it is a lot. Like I am truly bummed now that I'm like more planted in the industry and like actually doing this on a daily basis. Like I'm so bummed that I can't do GDC because me being on the East Coast, it just makes more sense than for me to go to and cover East. Like we have on the Vicarious side of things, we have folks who live on the West Coast who are going to GDC and handling that. And thankfully just being on the East Coast, much cheaper for me to go to Boston. But like everything I always see and like have conversations with people. And obviously after this podcast, I'm like, I would love to be able to do a GDC, but it just doesn't make sense. And like, I can't imagine how goddamn exhausted Jenny's going to be on that Thursday.
It's a rough one. I will say I'm lucky because like for me being up in Oregon, like California, it's an hour flight. It's like 45 minutes even for me. So the travel isn't too bad. And I've been strategic in the way that I've scheduled the flight. So, and I can sleep on planes. I'm one of like the few who I can actually like rest pretty well anywhere. So I think I've organized it so it shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, it's definitely not ideal, and I'd love them to change it back.
And
Yeah, you see those people who like in the press side are like, yeah, I'm hopping on the plane to go, and they're just zombies, you know.
oh yeah.
And they're zombies when they're leaving GDC, and they've still got the beginning of PAX to get through. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing this.
And it's funny to say, but like the press side or the PR side or whatever it may be have it lucky if they have to do both, because at least they're not exhibiting at both shows. There are developers who exhibit at both shows.
Yeah,
It's too much.
Yeah, I 100% am taking 5 points away.
Should we get 5 points just because I have to do both? So could we get 5 points for PAX just for sympathy?
Okay,
yeah.
5 points minus and then plus for PAX.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like John is going to PAX East. If for people who don't know, perhaps on the podcast, he is the news editor for the Indie Informer and a lovely human being. So it's sort of the first year the Indie Informer can be like have a presence at both places. But early on, he was like, "I'm going to do both of them." I'm like, "You're not. You're just not. I'm not going to allow
John,
it."
please. I'm very excited to meet John finally.
I don't know if I've ever actually met John.
I'm excited to meet him before you.
I appreciate it.
How do you even know he exists?
He exists. That is a real conversation that I had with my partner the other day.
Did you come to any good conclusions?
It is impossible to know unless there is someone who hates me who acknowledges that the Indie Informer is real.
What is an Indie Informer?
Exactly. And on that note, I think the debate is over unless anybody has something huge they want to throw out there.
Everybody wins because video games are cool, and you should just support the indie scene wherever you are in the country.
Except there's definitely a winner here. So go ahead, audience, and let us know anywhere if you are on any of our channels and you're paying attention. If you want to go to the Indie Informer socials, if you want to comment on the YouTube videos, if you want to comment on the podcast, put those comments in. By the next week, we'll tally them and we'll find out who won the great debate.
Also, I don't know. I can't speak for Jenna and Jill because maybe they're too busy with all their cool GDC stuff. But hey, if you see me and Jenny wandering around PAX East, say hi.
Yeah,
we're warm. We're welcoming. We're not cold like these GDC cowards.
No elitists here.
I will say,
I accept civvy badges.
I do run really cold, so if you come shake my cold hand at GDC, if you see me at GDC, say hey. I don't have like appointments like that, so I'm pretty.
I do have appointments like that, so you might literally see me running. But watch out for the red hair that's bouncing back and forth, and say hi.
I am going to try to go to panels, though, so that might be a little time pressed. But in general, I feel like people that say hello, y'all have been pretty good at being like, it's clear you're on your way to something. Let me like walk with you or something. So that hasn't really been an issue for me.
I love that you say pretty good because clearly you have somebody in mind that.
No, actually, I don't. But I guess I want to leave that space for like, this is an evergreen podcast, right? At some point, I'm sure someone's not going to be good.
Not going to respect your time.
Yeah, but like I know what I gotta do. Like I'm gonna get it done. Like I'll be
also
right.
Like we're not trying to be rude or mean or anything. It's just I've promised a team that I'm going to be here at this time in this place, and I would love to sit and chat with you about indies, but unfortunately the ivory tower is calling.
Yeah, there's cookies up there. I heard
there's cookies. Okay, let's talk about games we've been playing. Mike very hilariously has put down video software.
Adobe Premiere. Woo.
I didn't know if you wanted to shout them out specifically.
Definitely not Game of the Year contender, though. I'm going to strike that from the record.
Okay.
Adobe could go to hell.
How does it compare to DaVinci Resolve?
I need to get on DaVinci.
Yeah, come through.
I know. I need to come through. I need to. I played 20 minutes of a video game earlier, though. So I had something to talk about. Okay, I played 2 video games earlier for 20 minutes.
What was the 20-minute game that you played, Mike?
So a game that I've very much been looking forward to for quite some time now, seemingly stealth dropped today. It's a game called Zoonomaly from Lights Are Off LLC. So Lights Are Off. This game was put on my radar because Lights Are Off is a TikTok account that I like. They do. I don't know how y'all's For You pages are nowadays, but
Yeah.
they're one of these accounts that make these like CG horror clips where it's like they show like giant monsters or whatever destroying the world, and it's like horrifying. So one of these creators made a horror game. So the setup for this game is a zoo has been taken over by monsters, and you have been tasked with entering the zoo, finding the cause of the monster infestation, and putting a stop to it. What that is in practice, it's essentially a new spin on Slenderman. So the gameplay loop is there's a key that you have to get in order to open up this giant gate, which presumably is like the core to the mystery going on, which is why like all these monsters are taking over this zoo. And in order to get that key, you have to get 20 key fragments all over the zoo. So it's like very small and contained, but it is an open world where you are collecting 20 different key fragments. And in order to collect the key fragments, you are solving, I guess, environmental puzzles, but really so far it just seems like there are segments of the zoo where there is like a platforming section and like clearly there are puzzles around. So it's figuring out like, okay, I'm on the floor here. How am I getting up to that tower to get the key fragment? And yeah, just really fun platforming, really fun just problem solving. There's no combat in the game. The only tool that you have is this flashlight, and you are going around the zoo. Your ammunition is obviously light bulbs, so you're going around the zoo, and like you could kick a floor lamp and like the light bulb will fall off and you pick it up as ammo. I think it's like it's really intelligent in that way and just like practical in that way, where wherever there is a light you could get more ammunition. And you could hold there's not really official controller support, but I somehow got it working with the Xbox controller on the Steam Deck. You hold the right trigger and it charges up, and you essentially blast an emission of light, and you use that blast to like open up doors. You could trigger platforms. And there are some of these creatures because again it's a zoo and the monsters are out, and there's just these little lads roaming about. There's like a little boulder boy that like he looks like a little clay man that just kind of walks up to you and he'll give you a little smooch on the knee. But then there's also a lanky freak with a straw hat that will put his hands around your neck. So to avoid that, you can blast them with the light to like have them go away for a little bit so you could go focus on the keys and whatnot.
So it's Alan Wake.
kind of. And the other gameplay mechanic the other mechanic that's kind of unique to it has if you hold the left trigger, you essentially, for a lack of a better term, aim down the sights, and you are looking through I guess if you want to call it like an infrared kind of view. So it shows you if you're like let's say you're looking at one of the creatures, like one of the creatures will glow, so you'll clearly see like, oh, there's a man there. Maybe I shouldn't go that way, or maybe I'll see what's up. But it will show you kind of arrows on the floor, so like you never feel like totally lost, which is something that feels very dated for like the Slender games where you don't really know where those pages are. So it will kind of like signpost you or kind of nudge you in the right direction, which is nice. It'll legit show you where all those key fragments are, like just with pillars of light, so you know exactly where you need to go at all times, which is great. And for the puzzles themselves, it will illuminate some invisible things. So like one of the puzzles I did earlier, I couldn't figure out how to get to a platform. Like the puzzle was essentially blasting the light for a 2x4 or whatever that springs down, and you can hear a timer going off, and once the timer goes off it springs back up. So essentially you have to kind of like spring yourself to platforms. Okay. And I just couldn't figure out why it wasn't working exactly how it should. Pulling out that infrared first person look, you can see that there's invisible platforms all around that puzzle area. So you are trying to balance where you need to go through the invisible platforms, how you utilize some of these invisible platforms to get to that next key fragment. But yeah, so far it's really great. I've only put like 20 minutes into it so far, 25 minutes, but the puzzles are really fun. Like it's never kind of the thing where I'm beating my head against the wall and I haven't felt frustrated yet. The creature design is stellar, and that's no surprise given like I'm a fan of this person's creations on TikTok. Like and the monster design and creature design is stellar, and like the fidelity is stellar.
I'm looking at pictures of this game right now, and what Mike means by stellar is horrifying. What's the name? They're horrifying.
Zoonomaly. I'll drop a link in our thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a really great time, and I think it was $6. So if you want something weird, something creepy, if you are a fan of the Slender games from back in the day, but want something a little more updated, I'm having a great time so far. So I'm really excited to dig into it further once we stop recording.
You have like an interesting lane with like animals, and a lot of times it's like,
Sure.
what if we made the animals scary though? Like, you have this thing, and then you had that weird horse game.
Oh yeah, Pony
Express
Factory
or something.
The Pony Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then not scary, but still kind of like unsettling. That weird Pokemon Snap.
Oh, Pico Park.
Yeah,
Pico Park. Yeah, they're not scary, but they're a little like they're the kind of thing where like a kid might be scared of it, but like as an adult, it's like it's not attacking, so it's like not scary now.
Something I don't think it's purposeful, but something this game taught me really quickly is like, despite how something looks, not everything's gonna attack you. Like those little goblin men who just wanted to like give me a little smooch on the knee.
Yeah,
that's fine. Like they're good. They didn't attack me, and I felt safe. But you know, I tried it with Straw Man, and yeah. He got his little grubby fingers around me.
It's funny because it sounds a lot like Lethal Company, which when I look on Steam, it's like games similar to games you've played, and Lethal Company's there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Janet, it looks like you're still playing Balatro. Have you done a winning?
You can
run
go ahead
yet?
and ask Jill. Have I won yet? No, I have not. Like
Janet, I have not either.
You
it's
think
okay.
I wasn't going to hear
haven't
you be like,
either.
"Have you enjoyed your time?" Like we know what you were going to ask. All right.
Because
no.
I want to say that very specifically because I unprompted, my community was voting as I was playing on Steam or on stream, and they just voted to play Balatro for the last game, and I won that round.
Dang.
You can't take that away from me. That's literally
Gamer.
videotaped.
Nice.
Yeah, pro
You know
gamer.
when to fold them and when to hold them.
Hold them.
Yeah, I guess so.
So-
I'm still figuring that out.
Same.
No, but
I
I'm
believe
still
you.
playing it. I haven't. I lightly slowed down a little bit because the thing I've liked doing is playing this every night before bed on my Steam Deck, which is also a stressful way to go to bed, to be honest. Because the last run I did, I was like, I stopped playing and my shoulders were like up to my ears. I was so tense. I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize how invested in these numbers I was. But yeah, Balatro remains awesome. It's funny because I just got my partner Isaiah to play it. Like I mentioned it to him like a million years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's totally your thing. Like he loves Slay the Spire, all that stuff. But an issue I have, because I call this like stealing my fun, right? When like I'm such a hater for, I recommend a game to anybody else, and they're like, cool. And then they play it, they beat it before me. And I'm like, whoa, you still like, it's like, this is supposed to be my, like I shared it with you, yes, but it's like, oh, but you finished before me. And I get really salty about that. Totally irrational. Doesn't make any sense. It is what it is. And my fear, I'm still okay, but my fear, like, I'm like, as soon as you start, I know you're going to beat it before I do. I know you're going to beat it because he's good at card games. So, and he hasn't won yet. And I'm like, I live to see another day. Even though, again, does it matter? No, it doesn't. I'm still going to play. It's fine. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, I don't know. It's my own little, I mean, it's not my one neurotic thing, but it's a neurotic thing I have. So,
Did you
pray for
crank?
me.
Did you crank that speed up yet?
No, I haven't, but I'm about to next time I play because I finally reached the point where I'm like, I wouldn't mind this going a little faster. At first, I'm like, what's the rush? You know? Like, why do I gotta speed it along? But now I'm like, you know what? I kind of, once you get really, I think, deep into it and like know how it works a little bit more, you are compelled to go fast.
Yeah.
Sonic was right all along, it turns out. But other than Balatro, should I run through these other ones or should I wait?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. This is also basically, I'm playing a game, but actually I'm just doing my work. Because this is more of a gamified productivity tool, as like the team describes it. It's kind of like lo-fi. What's the name of the YouTube channel? Like
Beats
Lo-Fi
to
Girl?
write to or something like that.
yeah, it's like lo-fi girl, lo-fi beats to chill to. There's like a million like of that, that kind of lo-fi.
She has a brother
universe.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's like obviously the core of like the originator, and then I think many spin-offs of like people leaning into that lo-fi aesthetic of the girl sitting there studying. So it's basically like that, but like you make it your own. So there's like a little avatar maker. Right now it's just the demo version available. The full game or tool comes out in April. But it's really cool. You have like, you can make your little avatar. There's different spots in the room you can be at. You can add like rain or like different noise or different time of day. It has music player built into it where you can like listen to lo-fi music, or you could not if you choose to do your own music. They have like a to-do list. They have a Pomodoro timer in there. So I'm like, yeah, this is like really cool. Like cool little nice tool that has I think the gamified aspect will be more clear in the full build, because I think there's an aspect of like collecting different creatures, which I'm guessing is based on like amount of time put into it. I'm not sure yet. So I'm interested to see like what the more gamified aspect of this sort of hybrid tool game is, because I like the base idea of, oh cool, a way to make my timer like more aesthetic and have like a cute little list and like have a little buddy. And other than that, I'm also playing Words in Progress. I've been trying to dip more into mobile gaming lately, and this is an Apple Arcade game. It is actually, funnily enough, I didn't notice this at first, but it's from the same team as Lake, the
Oh.
That
the
makes
mailbox
sense.
game where you have like Blockbuster Girlfriend. If you know, you know. Great game. Love that game. Yeah, so this is like, again, totally different type of game. It's a word game. This one's like, it's fine. Like, I think it's not a banger word game in my opinion, but I think it's a great one to hit the daily challenge on, and I think it'd be really, really fun against other people. Like, you can play against friends, but I don't even though, like, Mike, you have Apple Arcade, right?
Yeah, I'm browsing right
Okay,
now.
if you want to be my Words in Progress friend, because I think it'd be really fun to like play against other people, but I just haven't had that. You can do random opponent, but it doesn't hit the same. The mechanically, here's what it is. It's like super simple. You have I think 7 letters at a time that populate in the middle of your screen, and then all you're doing is you're dragging those letters into each other to make a word. So maybe you have cat, and then when you want to submit it, you can just like drag it up to sort of submit the points. But you could also like maybe hold on to that word to make, like, again, simple example, oh, you get an S, oh great, now I got cats, okay cool, maybe now, or you save it even more to get like canteen, even though canteen is not spelled the way cats is, couldn't think of another word, right? So you can kind of play with the, well, when am I sending off a word, when am I committing to it? They also give you a few blank tiles which can kind of open up the words you can create, and just your goal is to score as many points as you can within, I forget offhand how many tiles they give you kind of per run, but that's the situation. So super simple gameplay. Again, it has a bit of a ceiling for me in that sense. Like, it's not super wild, interesting stuff, but if you like word games, like, this is another way to sort of engage with that style of game, and it's a solid one. Again, I'll probably be hitting the daily runs, and if we end up playing, we can have a deeper Words in Progress conversation where I put out cat and you put out like catheter, and I'm like, man, fuck you, Mike. I don't know.
Yeah, could we put a deep dive into Words in Progress on the calendar, please? Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
It's already on there.
How are you feeling compared to Gubbins? Have you
I think
dumped?
Gubbins is way better.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because I think Gubbins is more, they obviously scratch different itches, but I think Gubbins is just more fleshed out, and I think it's more enjoyable like on your own. I think also because the gameplay loop is much longer for Gubbins, and there's just more going on. But at the same time, I could see like Words in Progress being, again, it's funny because you can have a short word game that is more in depth, though. I think Wordle really like proved that, where it's like, wow, so much genius in the brevity. Words in Progress is more just kind of like a chill time, but it's not like, I don't know, I'm not like blown away by it, but it is like simple to get, generally enjoyable, but it's not like, if I'm ranking these, I probably rank this below, Gubbins, Wordle, Dear Reader, but it is solid and it's easy to do, and that can't always be said about these, so I feel like that's at least worth noting. And it is cool to see like, oh, what do you land like on the challenge, and that's why I think the friends aspect would be fun, because the idea of what can other people do with the same tiles, and I think that is a more interesting hook than just what play alone offers. But yeah, Words in Progress, making my way down the Words Apple Arcade Avenue.
In the 3 minutes I just played, and this is not a knock or anything, it definitely does feel like an Apple Arcade game, if that makes sense, versus Gubbins being like a game that you pay for on the App Store independently. Like, it definitely does feel like more like a just pick up and play, and just like
It's
somebody
very
messing
quick.
around in the train. Yeah.
It's very quick hit, and there's another, I can't remember it at all offhand, but there's another Apple Arcade word game that I was playing with earlier. It might Word Web. So like Word Web's another Apple Arcade game. I won't go in depth on that because one, I don't remember it fully, and two, I'd have to double check. Like, oh, is this a lot of the Apple Arcade games are indie, but maybe not all. Whatever.
Mhm.
But Word Web is a lot more layered because it's kind of like a take on the crossword that kind of just has additional mechanics to it. That's what I mean by like words in progress. It's very like, it's not that it's necessarily bad, but it is very like shallow and like chill, quick hit, while other ones have like more of a core mechanic where this is like, oh, we're putting the tiles together, and it's like, okay, well, we've kind of done all that you can do with that, like that's kind of just what it is, right? Well, Word Web has like a layer of playing with an additional thing outside of just what words can I make. So anyway, that's words in progress.
Speaking of a game with layers, Jenny, you can't talk about the first game that you
No.
put on this list, even though both of us have been playing it, and I'm very excited to talk about it next week. But you have maybe one of my favorite indie games of all time that you are replaying here. What are you playing?
Oh, really? I'm
Yeah.
replaying Gris right now, and I'm doing it because we're playing it for Geeks and Grounds. So it's like we're all playing it together as a Geeks and Grounds community and talking about the themes. And it's the first time I've replayed it since it launched back in like 2018. So it's been really incredible to see how the art, like, I was like, I wonder if the art's still going to be as good. Like, am I romanticizing it? This game is freaking beautiful. It's astounding how stunning it is. For folks who haven't yet gotten to try Gris, it's a game by Nomada Studio, and it was published by Devolver Digital. And I remember at the time I was like, Devolver's publishing this? Like,
Uh-huh.
what? So I knew it had to be something truly special because I was like, if Devolver's picking this up and it's very outside their normal wheelhouse, something here has to be quite magical. And it's essentially about like the story at its very surface level is about a young girl who is traveling through this world, dealing with a painful experience. And as you progress, different powers will manifest through her like dress to allow you to progress further and like find ways to move out of that painful experience. But there are so many layers to this game and so much symbolism. The like nerdy part of me is being very excited because just we've been talking about all of these layers as we've been replaying it, and I feel like I've gotten a lot out of this replay. And so, not anything new, but it's just been really nice to revisit a game and like fully get to savor it. Because I think when I played it, I also was like, I got to get it done for like launch basically. So it's nice to be able to take time with it.
After I checked out the Haunty demo during Next Fest, I was like, man, I should go back to Gris.
Yes.
Yeah. So
'Cause Haunty, big Gris vibes.
yeah.
But also Nomada Studio is working
Neva.
on it on Neva, which is coming
yeah.
out this year as far as I understand it.
Mhm.
Hopefully.
Keep that in mind. I want to jump in and talk about a game that I had a taste of and so knew to keep it on my radar, but it blew my mind how much I loved it. It is Snufkin, Melody of Moon and Valley.
Yeah.
And you hear that title and you think like that's going to be something to keep on the back burner, something to have, at some point. And it isn't a long game. It's like 5 hours or so. And
Hell
I
yeah.
like
Okay.
100
This is what I
completed
need
it.
on a game I can finish.
Sub 10 bangers. Let's go.
Yeah.
Not
for real.
only is this game like a ray of sunshine in video game form, but it is surprisingly real with you. Like it is not holding back this sadness, but the sadness makes the happiness happier. Sort of like this very nice thing. This is a true story, very realistically sat down with my partner. I was like, I want you to look at the art of this game. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is basically your childhood if you went to like the library every weekend.
So,
Mhm.
can I quickly interject?
Yeah.
No.
Was everybody sorry, continue. It's kind of surprising that like the conversation around this game, were y'all familiar with the Moomins beforehand?
No.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had
Okay.
no idea who these
But
were.
all I know is, which Jenny, I'm interested, what is your Moomin background? Because I just know like what they look like, and I know they look awesome. And it's like I saw them and I was like, yeah. But I haven't
No, but-
consumed like the Moomin content. Like what's
Yeah.
is it
I
originally
grew
like a
up.
show? Like what is it?
Wait,
I don't know if
before
there
you
was a
jump
show
in there,
that-
before you
Oh.
jump in, I just want to seed everyone's brain with this. Like the way that this looks, it's charming and sweet looking and like storybook
Yeah.
art and obviously the title you can get from that. I almost titled my review "Fuck the Police." Like
ACAB.
that's what's happening in this game. Go ahead, Jenny.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm actually
yes.
so glad that you were like, no, hold on. Because
Yeah, that's perfect.
I had no idea where that sentence was gonna go. I thought you were just gonna talk more about the art.
Dude, the Moomins are ACAB. Big time.
They are. That's 100% what's happening in this game. And I love it. And
We
they're
respect
not
the Moomins in
pretending
this
like
house.
they're not even holding anything back. Jenny, explain your childhood experience with this lovely IP.
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up reading the children's stories. So there was like a bunch of children's books. I think
Yep.
there was like a comic. I never read the comic. But it was just like I grew up well, and for context, because I don't know if this is more of a European thing or not, because I grew up on like in Germany for a time, and so that was where I remember reading those books in like the library section, the
Mhm.
kids section of the library in Germany. So I think it's actually like Swedish or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I believe it's Swedish. The Moomins did
Mhm.
make it stateside back in the 90s.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I was like, maybe that's why a lot of people I know are like, what is this? Like,
Yeah,
what
it's
no,
a
it's
kinda like-
100% like
oh my
Oh, I
god,
I got
love
this bag
it.
at the like when it's not really a thrift store, but like at one of those like little shops that's they sort of like find and also like repurpose clothes and things. And it's like this. I don't know who this is. I know it's a Moomins character, but
Yeah.
I was like, I was so drawn to it. Then I was like, oh, this is Moomins. Like, so like I think I followed them on Twitter for some time because I'm like, I just like seeing and. I think this goes back to like the art of it, even though the art is like slightly different in game than it is like in the many iterations of the Moomins. But it's so compelling. Like if you like, I don't know, it's so compelling. Like
Mhm.
it's edgy in the right spots, but also like they're so round. Like
They're so
They're pretty round. Yeah.
No, but like playing this game is really like you could tell just in the first instances of being in this game. First of all, the first like jumping into this game, they grab your heart and they stomp on it.
Love it.
And I don't appreciate it. Snuffkin. But
Does a
the
Moomin
thing
die?
about it, you'll
Oh
never
no.
know.
Oh no.
You've cursed
Um,
us, Mike.
But the thing about playing this game, it has been a hard year, a while longer than that, of sad things happening in the world and dealing with hard issues. This is a game that suspends that and you are just in an enchanted, beautiful world that is everyone's intentions are good for the most part. Like everything is beautiful. The snow glistens in a way it has no right to. Like you just want to be there. There are sections throughout this game where you like come across like a rock or something that you can interact with and you just sit down and you stare at the beauty of the world. There's a scenic scene that shows and it's just like light glistening off the bay and fish jumping out of the water or like flowers swaying back and forth and there's nothing else happening. That's all that's part of it. But I was literally sitting there playing / just watching and being in that moment for way longer than I should have as I was trying to get through the game and review it. But it is that kind of thing. It is a balm for the soul for people who are having a hard time. And I promise you this is worth picking up. So please do not dismiss this offhand as a simplistic, childish thing because you need this in your life.
Also, if you're anti-cop, maybe grab it as well.
100%.
it's good to
Yeah.
know that you like.
I've
it so
been
much,
really
just
excited
because-
for this one.
Yeah, I'm so happy like seeing the reviews drop. I think this could have like once it was first announced, I think it could have easily been like what Jill is describing or just totally missed the mark and like not really
Mhm.
capture the heart of what the license always tried to achieve back in the day. So it's really refreshing to hear that we got one of these so early in the year.
I wanted a shout out too because I wasn't 100% sure and I just looked it up. So the soundtrack, I'm really curious because
Yeah.
what is it? Sigur
Ross.
Sigur Ross. Yeah, they did the
rule.
soundtrack and they're
So good.
amazing. So I'm very excited to listen to that.
Doesn't disappoint.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's my actual title, the thing I went for my review comes directly from a quote from one of the characters. It's like happy, sad, and beautiful like life. And it's like that's sort of what you're getting. It's not shying away from the harder things, but everything is beautiful. And
I have a dumb question to ask, if
Yeah,
you
I'm
will
ready.
indulge me in yet another dumb question. So the Moomins, right? Because it's like, oh, Snufkin, Melody of Moomin Valley.
Yeah.
So are the Moomins, is that like a race? Is that like the little like white fuzz like plush
Yes.
guys? Like those are Moomins. Like when I
Those
look at
are
that
Moomins.
guy,
Yes.
that's a Moomin. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I
they
have
all
no more
have silly
questions.
Moomin names. Yeah.
Right.
And you don't need to know anything about the lore, if you want to call that, of
Yeah,
of
the
yeah,
deep
of the-
Moomin lore.
Yeah. Like
Sure.
you'll get the concept. They do a very good job of
Art wise, it
onboarding
actually
you.
like maybe it's like the way things are kind of like flattened in a way. It kind of reminds me of what's that game where it's like there was a lot of hype for it, but I feel like it didn't quite land. It had a lot of mini games in it. You were like a little girl, you had a hood. It's like you had like oh god, it's like there were cats that you could ride, and I can
Oh,
picture
Mineko's
it.
Night Market.
Yes,
Mineko's Night Market.
which I didn't
yes.
play that to its entirety, but I just heard that it didn't quite like. But this reminds
It
me.
had
of
a
that,
rough launch, yeah.
just in terms of the kind of glancing at the trailer and seeing like the tasks that you're doing, like kind of the light
Mhm.
like gamified aspects of it seem very reminiscent of navigating that kind of space.
The art style, while being a sort of flat hand-drawn-esque sort of thing, I think for this has a more complex layered beauty to it, which is weird. Like I think this is going to be one of the more beautiful games of this year. I sort of liken it a little more to Jordan is a little closer to
Oh,
where
Is
they
that how
are
you
with
say
the
that? I
art.
thought it was
I think it's Dordogne.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's French, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please pick that up. It is out this is not while we're recording, but as this pops up, it should be out today. Another thing I want to shout out, I have been doing. Oh, Mike.
Okay.
Dordogne.
But I don't know. Would Google do the accent though? Is the thing?
It's like I'm sure that a French person. I'm sure a French person would say it and would be like, I don't know the words.
That's what I mean. Like I
that
don't
just
know if
came out of your
Google
mouth.
would like get all French, but anyway.
I
Probably in
did do a
France.
preview
Yeah.
for Cataclysmo, which
Mm.
is
Okay.
such a game that I want to love and I don't. And
Ow.
it makes me
Mm.
upset. And I don't think that it's because of any deficiency in the game. I think I'm just not the player for this game.
Okay.
So might get reinterested.
Okay. Who's the developer again? They did something
Moonlighter.
cool.
Yes.
Moonlighter? Is that
Yeah.
their
from the
last
creators-
project?
From the
Yes,
creators
yes,
of
yes.
Moonlighter, Digital Sun is the
Mhm.
developer and the publisher.
It is atmosphere out the wazoo. I love it. The lore, I'm on board. The art style, I can't believe how good it looks. Like the building mechanics are all really fun and really good. It is a lot of it is kind of tower defensey. I've been known to dabble in these.
Okay.
I think there is just a element of it being so computery gamey that is stopping me. I think maybe the instant I can play it on console and have it dumbed down for my dumb little brain, I will like it better.
Jill, they all can't be Thronefall, you know?
You know,
Unfortunately.
I can't docket points for that. But I also had a really hard time sitting down and writing coverage for this game because I'm like, it's not going to be a fair evaluation because I'm just a dumb little smooth brain baby. And I cannot get it to like click for me, even though I love everything that's happening. I love the atmosphere of this world. I love the post apocalyptic feel. I love the camaraderie coming together, folklore, dark, deep woods sort of feeling to it. I love that you can just build the world around you. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't like this game. And I feel like it's just me being dumb. So I want to shout it out and I want to have people go and check out the demo because it is something that I am sure is going to be championed by the right people. So please go do that. Another game that is going to be championed by the right people, and I might be one of them, is 64. I was mid this game, and I literally wrote in the Indie Council chat, like, y'all, this game, I don't know what's happening. My brain is unraveling at this game right now. It is on its base sort of like the factory management game, but like the narrative that is spinning alongside of it is sort of so meta and so weird, and like you're texting with your friend and they're like, "Hey, you want to come over at some point?" Or like, "Are you coming over this afternoon or whatever?" And you're like, "Yeah, of course. I just got to fix the machine." And you're just like, "Machine? What the heck are you talking about?" "Okay, whatever. Come out later." And then like you find out he's constantly trying to like get your attention, and you're just sort of like, yeah, he's being so dramatic or whatever. And then as you're sort of clicking away and building your machines and making this perfect thing that continues to build up in a really fun, interesting way of like, this unlocks this thing, that unlocks this thing, that unlocks this resource, which helps you get this resource, like you got this annoying little buzzing friend who's like trying to bother you, and you're like, what do you want? And then he kind of shouts out like, "You've been missing for 2 weeks." And you're like, "I've been gone for like an hour at most." She's like, "No, you're literally not in your house anymore. Like, I'm calling the police. They're looking for you." So you're like, "Oh, I guess I never thought about the fact that I don't know how any of this works, and I don't know where I am. What's happening? I don't know what's happening." That's sort of where I am in the game right now.
Jenna
So
just broke me with what she posted in her chat.
The art is wild in this game. I'm looking at the game, and I'm
that's
looking
actually a rock. That's the rock
What?
that seems to perhaps determine all of reality.
okay.
Is all I know.
All right.
Got it.
May or may not. I can't be sure.
Yeah, the art is it has a lot of like food imagery to it. It looks kind of like Nor, if Nor was like hyper realistic. But then it's also a factory.
Yeah.
So this seems like quite the ride. I don't know what to do. And then it's interesting too, because like then not that reviews or everything, but sitting at like mixed, and some people are like, "Oh
Yeah,
man,
I don't doubt it.
like," you know what I mean? Like it's like
Mhm.
everyone's very like hot and cold on it, which kind of makes it more compelling in a way. I don't know. This is some weird art house stuff you got going on here.
Like, look at the picture and then look at the bottom left. That's the story that's happening. Like, that's how the story is told to you and unfolds throughout the game. And you're just reading this, and it's the most unhinged. And like, you start to question, like, okay, am I insane? Am I imagining a world that I can't understand, and I'm off in the forest somewhere, and like the police are looking for me? Or am I in an alternate reality in which I am making and governing these machines in order to discover the meaning of life? Like, it could really be either way. And I really enjoy games that conflate the player with the character. So it is a sort of question about like, I am actually just sitting at this computer clicking. Like, that's pretty much the almost the entirety of the gameplay is just click, 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 get my management resources.
An
It's an
idle
idle
like
clicker,
automation
yeah.
game, right? Yeah.
Like, I mean, sort of, but you do have to actively be. I mean, maybe at some point you get your factories to the point where they're working on their own, but like, I was sitting there clicking for just hours, just click, 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 over and over and over again to try to get my resources up. And like, at some point I'm here as the player questioning, like, why am I doing this? Why am I in this white dimension just trying to build machines? And like, it's the exact same question that the character is asking. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I really enjoy questioning my sanity, apparently. So go check that out if you get the chance. Last one I really want to dive into. I am currently playing, an embargo for this goes up tomorrow, so we'll be good. I am doing a preview of Sulfur, which I got to see a little bit at was it last Summer Game Fest? It was one of them. Something last year, which I played a little bit, and my one like being held back was that it was a mouse and keyboard situation. But now that it's like controller supported and I'm playing through, I'm like, yeah, I'm blasting through this. I love
Jill,
it.
I have a surprise for you.
I'm ready.
I didn't realize there was a preview going on around this. I've also played Sulfur.
Go ahead, Mike. Tell me, what is Sulfur?
Sulfur is a really sick roguelike where you play first person. It's an FPS roguelike. You play as this person, and you have this amulet, this like really interesting tome
Like
or whatever it may be, sentient thing that is kind of controlling or driving you to go explore these cavernous biomes. And you go in there and there's these little goblin men. And what are you gonna do with the goblins? Shoot them. Do a little
None of
shooty
these
shoot.
come up and kiss you on the knee.
No, these ones are for they try. That's why you gotta shoot them.
You gotta shoot them because they're gonna get in there with their teeth. It's toothy kisses.
What I really love and appreciate about this game, it feels as good as it looks.
Mhm.
Like this is a game that's been on my radar for quite some time now, and it just like it always looked so snappy and so satisfying, but I never thought it would achieve that snappiness and satisfaction. But getting my hands on the controller, man, they nailed it. And, like it really does feel like. And I'm not a first person shooter kind of person, but back in the day, I used to play some Call of Duty and Destiny and stuff like that. It really does give me the sensation of like a Call of Duty, a Destiny, a Halo. Like it really feels, the gunplay feels great in this game. So gameplay wise, you're just going through these caverns doing the roguelike thing. Eventually you die, you awaken in this town and you're greeted by this mysterious figure of like, oh, you're back again, huh?
Yeah, literally, you are greeted by the gravedigger who has just dug you out
put
of
you
your own
in the ground.
grave.
Yeah. And that's where you learn that you are a priest, and you are for whatever reason going around trying to clear out these caverns.
Like they do tell you why, which is it is very interesting, but we don't want to ruin that.
Exactly.
Here. It is a very, very cool narrative setup for what is happening. Essentially, sulfur is a noun. It is the name of the place before you get to the actual formal afterlife. Whatever you want to call that. So like you are dead. They're very clear about the fact that that's not a spoiler. That is the narrative setup for this game. You are already dead and you are trying to accomplish something and help the people that you may or may not have let down and got them into a situation. Like it's unclear exactly what happened that led to this point in your life. But it feels really good. It is humorous. It's got a lot of really funny like jokes to it that don't really deserve to be in a game like this. And you feel really accomplished when you get through. So I'm excited to play more of it and to check that out. And I should have coverage up soon, if you're not already.
It's really beautiful also. Like limited color palette, very not really like vibrant or anything like that, but just very tonal, like greens, browns, like but a limited color palette that really reds that really pop. And I love the animation. Like it's kind of like South Parky in a way, like old school South Park, where you're just kind of like 25 frames a second bouncing around, kind of like Spider-Verse-y in a way, but like way more stilted. It's really effective and just it's really, really beautiful in its simplicity.
Yeah. And besides that, I do just want to shout out Minami Lane, still in love with that. Cricket Through the Ages, not what you're expecting. And Quadroids came out recently. And that is such a mind trip. Like I played that on stream and my community had a lot of fun laughing at my ridiculousness. So
and just a brief tip of the hat to Berserk Boy. It's on my Steam Deck. I have not played it, but another game that I'm just delighted is getting a bunch of praise and love this week.
Yeah.
Also, Quadroids was really cool. I played it at the Mix at where we saw all of
I think
each
it was
other.
PAX West.
West?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wherever.
Where we saw all of each other. Yep.
Yeah.
Where we saw all of each other.
Y'all remember what it was. But
yeah, that day.
It is such a cool it is such a cool puzzle game. That's it. Yeah. It's fun.
100%. That's what we're playing today. And that's the end of this week's council. Thank you to the entire council for showing up today and being able to talk. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for everybody who dropped in to listen to us ramble on about all the things that we are excited to talk about. People can follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts until April. The Indie Council has its own socials, and those are Janet.
At the Indie or at Indie Council everywhere, and then I never know if there's a the there. And then on Twitter, it's Indie Council _ because we couldn't get any of the other ones because it's taken for some reason. Yeah, I'll probably put up, even though we don't. How many followers do we have on there? We have a little chunk. We got 202. I'll put up a poll when the episode goes live about who won the debate. And
I love it.
Jill can do it with her
Yes.
8 alt accounts.
And can you also do a follow up of Denny's versus IHOP?
Yeah. Oh hell yeah. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna get more engagement than
I'm
the
ready.
other one.
We're
and
gonna
that's
we're
totally
gonna pump
fine.
those numbers up.
Hell yeah.
But until then, this session is closed. Go play some indies.
Okay, there it is.
Yay.